I've got some thoughts about the Wuthering Waves story, and they're complicated. I don't think it's bad, let me be clear about that. It's actually decent, and there are parts I genuinely like. The setting is fantastic, the world building is seriously well done, from the gods to the sentinels to the different types of audience. It's all pretty fascinating stuff. I love the lore, I love the atmosphere, I love what they've created here. But the direction they took with the story, that's why I have issues. The way they chose to tell it, the narrative decisions they made, they just don't land for me. I'll break down exactly why in a moment. But first, I want to thank everyone who's liked, subscribed, and left comments. Your support means a lot. If you've been following the channel, I truly appreciate you. And if you're watching but haven't subscribed yet, no pressure. But if you enjoy this kind of game analysis, consider hitting that sub button. Maybe tap the bell to stay updated, and feel free to drop a simple hi in the comments. I respond to every single one. Alright, let's dive into this. Let me get something out of the way first. I'm going to compare this to Genshin Impact a lot. I've said before that I don't really like playing Genshin, but I do think they tell good stories, and that's why I'll keep bringing it up. Just wanted you to know before we get into it. Now, let's do a quick rundown of Wuthering Waves' story so everyone is on the same page. So here's the deal. You used to be this super important person, so important that even gods called you their master. But for some reason you erased all your memories, and now you're back with no clue about who you were. You start in Jinzhou, and it's pretty standard RPG stuff. You help people out, beat a big bad guy, and pick up friends along the way. Then you go to Hongjiang to help your friend the magistrate deal with her powers. You fight a god, you win, cool. After that, it's off to the Black Shores where, guess what, you fight another huge enemy, take them down, and now you're in Renaissita, and yeah, you can probably guess what's coming next. And honestly, that's fine. It's a standard RPG game. You go somewhere new, help fix things, beat the bad guy, and move on. It works, I like it. But here's my first problem with the story. Yes, I understand that the Rover is important, but the Rover we're playing as, they're just too important and too powerful. Remember how I said I love the setting of Wuthering Waves? I still do. The world they built is awesome. The lore is fascinating. They've created these really powerful groups that are supposed to be a big deal in this world. Let's talk about these groups for a second. You got the Sentinel, living legends, basically mega powerful echoes that people worship like gods. The Black Shores, a secret organization working from the shadows, stepping in to fix the world's biggest problems when no one else can. And then there's the Fractsidus, another secret organization, but the not so good kind. Think the Fatui of Wuthering Waves. These are supposed to be the heavy hitters, the big boys and girls in Wuthering Waves. Each group is packed with people who, whether collectively or by themselves, have the capacity to heavily influence the world. But here's the problem. All of these supposedly powerful groups look at you as someone above them. Think about it, in Jinzhou and Hongjiang, I told you that we helped out saving the day. What I didn't tell you was that in Hongjiang, a sentinel, someone who's supposed to be one of the strongest beings alive, calls you their master. Then in Jinzhou, the Fraxodus constantly tell you that you are the chosen one, the eye of the storm. And just to top it all off, you literally created the Black Shores. So let me ask you, where's the challenge in that? When every powerful group is basically bowing down to you, where is the excitement? Where are the opponents that make you think, wow, I need to get stronger to beat them? Right now, the Rover isn't just strong, they're basically untouchable, and that just kills any tension in the story. This is where Genshin Impact does it better. Sure, both games start similar. You've got the Rover and the Traveler. Both lost their memories, both exploring the world to figure things out. But here's the big difference. In Genshin, there are actual threats to worry about. Real threats that make you think, okay, this might be trouble. Take the Archons, for example. Remember meeting Raiden Shogun for the first time? That moment when she pulled out a sword. How intimidating and awe-inspiring the whole event looked. Or when Zhongli casually dropped a mountain-sized spear from the sky. These aren't just strong characters, they are forces of nature. Every time you enter a new region, you feel their power. They're not just strong, they're a mystery, they're unpredictable. Even when you meet a weaker Archon like Nahida, they still command respect. You never walk in thinking, yeah, I can totally take them. And it's not just the Archons, think about the Fatui Harbingers. Signora literally kicked your ass in your first encounters, Karamush had you running, and Child had 3 different forms ready to take you down. Then there's the Abyss Order with their grand schemes, ancient gods sleeping under the earth, beings like Ishdaha and Ozayo that make you question if you're ready for the fights. The beauty of Genshin's story is that it always keeps you guessing. Sure, you're getting stronger, but so are your enemies. Every new area brings new challenges, new powers you've never seen before. Even when you think you're hot stuff, there is always someone or something ready to humble you. But in Wuthering Waves, when a sentinel who's supposed to be this ultimate form of existence, at least that we know of right now, calls you their master, that instantly puts you above everyone else. Even if not every sentinel sees you as their boss, just having one of them bow to you makes it hard to take any of them seriously as threats. It's like if Zhongli took one look at the Traveler and said, "Oh, you're basically the god of all gods. Where do you go from there?" And you know what's really frustrating? I don't mind the Rover being this ancient, powerful being. That could be cool. But the other factions should feel just as powerful in their own rights, completely separate from who the Rover is. Take the Sentinels. They're supposed to be these godlike beings that shape the world around them, but our first impression is one of them calling us master. Sure, maybe later we'll meet Sentinels who are absolutely terrifying and couldn't care less about our past, but that first impression, it's already set in stone. Even if we meet stronger opponents later, that initial impact is lost, and that's my big issue with where they took the story. They had all the pieces for an epic journey of discovery and growth, but instead, they went with the "surprise, you were the strongest all along" approach, and it's like skipping straight to the end of a book. Sure, you know what happens, but you miss out on all the good stuff along the way. Now, let's talk about my second big issue, the Fractsidus. They're set up to be our main bad guys, kind of like the Fatui in Genshin Impact, but while the Fatui burst into the scene making us go, oh crap, the Fraxodus just sort of exist. Let's break down why this matters. Think about our first real encounter with Scar. Yeah, he was a cool boss fight, but what did he actually accomplish? He showed up, told us this analogy about white sheep and black sheep and got beaten, and that is all. I am not underselling what he did. This is literally all that he did in the story. Then there's Frelova. Sure, she's supposed to be this powerful threat, but by the time we get to Renacita, we are already stopping her plans for the second time. For a secret organization that's supposed to be pulling the strings from the shadows, they're not doing a great job at being either secret or threatening. Now let's compare this to how the Fatui were introduced. The first time we saw them in action, Signora walks right up to a god, slaps him around, and takes his power for her own. That's an entrance. That's how you tell your audience these guys mean business. Even their weaker members left lasting impressions. Look at Child. This man tried to unleash an ancient god on Lihe, and yet he's the same guy we end up working with later on. We work with Child later on because there is actual depth to the Fatui. And that's a real problem with the Fractsidus. They're missing that depth. The Fatui, we know they're serving an Archon. We know they're fighting against the Heavenly Principles. And hey, we're not even sure if those principles are good or bad. But the fact is, even with all that happening, every Harbinger feels like their own person with their own motives. The Doctor might be straight up evil, but then you've got someone like Arlecchino, who's got this whole complex thing going on with her orphanage. Even the villains have layers. But the Fractsidus, they're just mysterious, and not in a good way. Everything about them is hidden behind the wall of, oh, we're secretive. And that's cool, but why? What are they actually trying to accomplish? We know they are behind a bunch of bad stuff happening in the world, but we have no idea why. Are they trying to save the world in their own twisted way? Do they just want power? Are they fighting against some bigger threat that we don't know about yet? Right now, they feel like they're evil because the story needs villains. They're doing bad things because, well, that's what bad guys do in stories, right? But that's not enough. Not when you're trying to create a compelling antagonistic force that's supposed to carry us through the whole game. The Fractsidus could have been so much more. They have all these cool characters, but without understanding their motives, without seeing the layers to their organization, without getting that strong first impression that makes us go, oh yeah, these guys are a real threat. They just end up feeling like generic bad guys doing generic bad guy things. And in a world as rich and detailed as Wuthering Waves, they deserve to be more than that. Now, let's talk about the third and biggest problem. A gathering wives situation. Oh boy. This was hands down one of the worst parts of version 1, and it made me genuinely uncomfortable, especially during the Black Shore storyline. I was beyond frustrated. I was actually angry. Now let's start with what actually worked. Take Chun-Li for example. Her dynamic with the Rover was actually pretty well done. There is this subtle attraction there, but it's not her whole personality. She's got her own goals, her own character arc, and the attraction feels natural, like something that developed through their interactions. That's how you do a romance in a story. But then we get to the Black Shores and everything goes off the rails. It's like someone in the writing room said, hey, you know that subtle thing we did with Chun-Li? Let's do that again, but dial it up to like 1,000%, because suddenly every other scene is just glaze this and glaze that. It's endless, it's forced, and it completely takes away from what could have been amazing character moments. And this brings me to probably my most disliked character in all of Wuthering Waves, the Shorekeeper. And trust me, from the bottom of my heart, it pains me to say this because, and this is the really frustrating part, she was the character I was most excited about. Remember that one trailer, the one with the butterflies passing through everything? That was absolutely stunning. Peak visual storytelling right there. And when they revealed she was this ancient being, I lost my mind with excitement. Finally, we're getting something different. Up until then, every major character had been human, but the Shorekeeper was supposed to be something else entirely. She was meant to be this god-tier entity, or in the very least, someone with power that would make even Sentinels think twice. That is what was going on in my mind. But then, what did we get instead? The biggest example of character assassination I have ever seen in a game. Her entire character got reduced to woman who's obsessed with the Rover. That's it. That's her whole thing now. And if you asked any random player to describe the Shorekeeper in one sentence, they wouldn't talk about her powers or her mysterious nature or her role in the Black Shores. They'd say, oh, that's the one who really likes the Rover. And you know what makes this even worse? Her design is gorgeous. Her animations are fluid and beautiful. She looks like she could be this incredible complex character. But instead, all of that got sacrificed to push this gathering wives narrative. The problem spreads beyond just Shorekeeper too. Look at Camellia. Every other line out of her mouth is about this seed of fate business. I physically cringe every time she starts with that nonsense. It's like they took these potentially fascinating characters and decided their only purpose was to swoon over the Rover. Now, there's a silver lining. In Renacita, we're finally starting to see some improvements. Yeah, the Gathering Wives thing is still there, I'm looking at you, Carlotta, but we're also getting female characters who actually have their own identities. Zani, she couldn't care less about the Rover's charm. She just acknowledges that other people make a big deal out of him. Same with Phoebe. They're their own characters first, and that's how it should be. But let's circle back to the Black Shores, because this is where it hurts the most. This was supposed to be this epic organization filled with powerful, competent individuals. Instead, what we got was this. They took what could have been one of the most interesting parts of the game and turned it into some weird harem fantasy. They didn't just drop the ball with the Black Shores, they threw it off a cliff. Alright, so moving forward, here's what I really want to see from Wuthering Waves' story. First, introduce us to a group of people, whether it's a faction we've heard whispers about or a completely new one. Introduce us to a group of people that don't treat the Rover like they're some untouchable divine being. I want to see characters who either see the Rover as a threat, a rival, or better yet, just don't care about their supposed importance. Right now, every major character in the game acknowledges the Rover's status in some way, and honestly, it's getting repetitive. We get it, the Rover is important, but I want to see enemies who take that knowledge and challenge it. Who say, yeah, I know what you've done, I know what you are, and? Like, that's the kind of energy I need from future antagonists. Second, stop making these enemies feel like fodder. If we're going to have villains, make them matter. Give us real stakes, real development, real motivations. Show us something that actually explains the Fraxodus. Right now, they're just there, like some background threat that we're supposed to take seriously. But the game hasn't done enough to make them feel serious. What do they really want? What's their grand vision? What's their philosophy? Are they just chaos driven, or do they have a deeper, more complex reason for what they're doing? Give us a proper cutscene that doesn't just introduce them as the next batch of bad guys to beat up. Give us depth. Give us something that makes us sit and go, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand why these guys are the way they are. Because right now, they just don't feel complete. And finally, listen, I think they're already starting to phase out the whole Gathering Wives thing. Like I said before, it's a huge relief. I don't think we'll see it again in the same way it was before, and that's fantastic because at the end of the day, Wuthering Waves has so much potential. The world, the mechanics, the combat, it's all solid, but the story, it's not quite there yet. And that's what I want to see change. I want them to really sit down and refine the writing. Focus on building characters that feel layered and earned rather than just being thrown at us with surface level appeal. The story is on the verge of becoming something great, but it's not there yet. And if they put in the work, man, it could be incredible. But that's just for me. What about you? Do you agree with my take? Do you think I'm being too critical, or do you see the same problems I do? What's your take on the Gathering Wise issue, and what do you think about how the Rover is treated? Let's have a conversation going on in the comments, and I really want to hear your thoughts on this. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.